Oh, I do not want to run outside today. It snowed. It only snowed like 5 inches, like, I don't know, that much, 6 inches maybe. But it's 0 degrees out. It got below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. It's like negative 20 centigrade. Pretty cold for Boulder. I got to run 18 miles today still. I've been putting it off. So I'll do this training talk instead. Hi there, Coach Sage of SageRunning.com here with another training talk. Today we're going to talk about perceived effort, rate of perceived effort, or relative perceived effort, or RPE. I see this acronym being thrown around. Didn't even know what it was. I've been running for 20 years and coaching for the last 10 years about. And, a lot of times people go by heart rate percentage when we're talking about relative efforts, right? Percentage of your maximum heart rate number, or, pain scale, the pain scale, 1 to 10 pain scale, right? It's very subjective though. The rate, the perceived effort in the pain scale, when you're trying to assign a number to pain, what is 80% effort? What is 90% effort? Well, is it 80 or 90% of your maximum heart rate? And then what pace does that correspond to? And these are all valid questions. And in our SageRunning.com training plans, we actually usually do use something like percent heart rate or, 80% type of effort on like a hill repeat or something like that. But at the same time, for like our Boston qualifying marathon plans or trying to run under a 1:30 half marathon or something like that, you have to go by pace as well, because if you're not running 6:52 per mile pace, or you're not running, sub 4 minute per kilometer pace in some faster workouts, then you're not going to be able to run under 3 hours in the marathon. That's 6:52 per mile pace. But scale that back. If you want to crack 3:30 in the marathon, you have to run a certain pace. You have to train at some speedier workouts that are 10, 20 seconds per mile or 15 seconds per kilometer faster than that goal race pace. So it all comes back to the numbers and the actual velocity of flat running. Now, that being said, there's some variations. What if you're running into a headwind, right? What if it's hot and humid conditions? What if you're running on a treadmill? What if you're a trail runner and you're doing hill repeats on a slope, a trail that's, more technical, or it changes in pitch? Most trails aren't a consistent 10% uphill grade. So, then you have to go more by perceived effort. And that's this whole idea of, if I'm doing a workout like 4 by 10 minutes at tempo, 4 by 10 minutes lactate threshold, we try to get into that physiological response of lactate threshold, but some people, you might not hit it exactly. And that's okay, because it's a spectrum. And that's the whole idea why we created the pace intensity spectrum on our website, SageRunning.com. We just launched our pre-orders for SageRunning.com trucker hats. I will say, check out the link below in the description below how you could pre-order yours, limited edition. But we have a free download there called the Key Intensity Pace Spectrum Chart. And it kind of goes by that whole idea of colors. We got, green, yellow, orange, red, but also the actual threshold that you're looking to train, whether it's primarily fat burning and easy aerobic running, into the lactate threshold, up tempo to tempo, LT training, right? The threshold, how you could, basically minimize lactate buildup when accumulation starts coming at an exponential rate. You don't have to know all the science on that, to even going into the realm of VO2 max, trying to get maximum oxygen uptake, harder interval training, to even pure speed sprints, things like that, stuff that's, buffering lactic acid, even higher intensity. And we've trying to assign race paces to that, or types of workouts that fall under these spectrums. And it gets a little confusing, because this is the big problem with percentage of max heart rate and perceived RPE, is that you're trying to assign this subjective value into values that you don't know maybe you're 100% max on. So a lot of people, if you haven't had a real VO2 max test in really good conditions and got a really good effort in the lab, you might not know what your 100% maximum heart rate value is. And a lot of heart rate monitors, especially wrist optical ones, are not very accurate. They're all over the place, and you see this in Strava data from people. It's fluttering all over the place. Sometimes it lines up with your stride rate or cadence, and so it's not a very accurate barometer. You probably didn't hit 100% maximum heart rate when you were doing a workout. It's usually you have to do like a full-on VO2 max test, or you're running an all-out 3K, very competitively, even pace, and then you're sprinting really hard at the end with a bunch of competition and adrenaline to even get close to 100% maximum heart rate. So if you're working from what's 85% of your maximum heart rate? Is that around your lactate threshold? Well, maybe, maybe not. you might not know what 100% is, and then the failure of heart rate values. So you can't always go by heart rate. That is a better thing to go by, though, because you have relative numbers, actually quantitative data to compare, based then on the RPE scale, or perceived effort of perceived exertion, running perceived exertion, whatever you want to call it. That's totally subjective, right? You're like, is the pain scale 1 to 30, 1 to 20, 1 out of 10? You know, pain scale doesn't care about your feelings too much, right? 1 to 10 scale might change as you get more advanced, as you bring more out in your running, and you start to get used to doing harder workouts. You might say like, hey, you know what? I have more in the tank. I think I could run that 5K faster. I think maybe I know what it's like to feel really pushing really hard above my lactate threshold, getting lactic acid and all the pain of that acidosis buildup. Maybe I could run faster, and I could sprint harder, or I could start my kick from a kilometer out when I'm racing an all-out 5K. So your pain threshold changes as you get more advanced as a runner, and you start realizing that you could deal with more pain. You could run closer to an all-out sprint, and you could run a faster pace, maybe even in a long-distance race like a marathon. So it's not a good scale. It's not a good scale. I don't like it. Why not do the talk test? We do this a lot with we say, I keep preaching easy aerobic base building miles. That's roughly 80% of your training usually. It's a conversational pace. Can you carry a conversation with a friend? Are you running relaxed with good form? But can you just be talking? Because you're not breathing so hard that you can't be talking in fluid sentences, right? That's why I could film and vlog when I'm running easy. Now you start running a little bit harder, and it starts getting to the point where maybe you only say 2 or 3 sentences, or you say a sentence at a time, but you're kind of huffing and puffing. Well, then you're getting closer to the lactate threshold, up tempo to tempo. I call it, the up tempo is closer to like around marathon pace for a lot of people. It depends what time range you're in. To tempo running, which is faster than marathon pace generally, if you've raced a road marathon. To getting close to that lactate threshold in the tempo run realm is where you're only sputtering out 2, well, maybe 3, 4, 5 words at a time. So you could say a sentence, but you don't really want to say a sentence. So it's the talk test. And that's a better barometer because it has to do with your breathing and your oxygen usage. And when you're getting close to the threshold, the whole idea is to be able to have this feel-based training where you could kind of feel the lactate accumulating in your muscles. You start getting this heavy feeling. You're breathing, maybe your breathing rate is two inhales in for every 2 steps and two breaths out for every 2 steps, right? The breathing might go roughly in with your stride rate, which is probably pretty high. It should be around at least in the 170s when you're doing a tempo run on the flat surface at least. And you start to feel some burning, right? That's the acidosis, right? You're building up lactate, and there's a little bit of an anaerobic component that causes basically a hydrogen ion to attach to lactate and make it lactic acid. You don't need to know that, but there's some buffering going on. That's when you've got past the threshold. But what does that mean in actual numbers? Well, if you've raced a recent 5K or 10K, you kind of know like, oh, this is pretty close to my all-out 10K pace, my current all-out 10K pace. Maybe it's closer to a half marathon. It's usually between 10K flat running half pace to half marathon flat running pace. But that's if you've done a current race and had some good tests. Now, if you wear a heart rate monitor in that and it's reading accurately, you could kind of get a good number for what your threshold zone might be around in. And, maybe you say, oh, I know this, I could extrapolate it and say, okay, if up tempo is around 80 to 85% perceived effort and maximum heart rate, then maybe, I'm starting to approach 90% of max heart rate and threshold, or 9 out of 10 on the pain scale, we could say, right? Steady state, 8 out of 10 on the pain scale. If we're going to go by the pain scale, and we can kind of align those numbers because it's all relative. It's all relative. People have different max heart rates depending on their age and genetics, and it's going down as you get older, and it's a moving target. So the whole idea is just trying to run the correct intensity in workouts, in high quality workouts, when you're actually trying to train lactate clearance or the threshold, or you're trying to train VO2 max. You're trying to train the legs to get used to what 5K goal pace feels like, right? Or to train the efficiency to develop that stride rate and stride length and muscle power, as well as the aerobic adaptations with your heart and lungs to get the most bang for your buck out of training. And that's really the whole goal of all this science and all this talk. But I don't like the RPE scale. I don't always trust heart rate monitors. At some point, if you're training for a flat, fast race, and you're training for a certain time in like a marathon or something, you need to run a certain pace. That's very scientific and objective. If you're a trail runner doing hill repeats and you're on the trail, you have to throw the pace out the window. You have to go more by these subjective feelings of, am I accumulating lactate? Am I crossing my threshold? Do the talk test. Do the talk test so you're not going too hard on your easy days. Run with other people. Talk to yourself. Something like that. I talk to myself sometimes because I'm running alone. But anyway, I digress. Thanks so much for watching on here. Really, really appreciate your support. Again, thanks to the Patreon supporters for really making this possible. I can't thank you guys enough, especially I've been giving away these hats actually for free to some high-level Patreon supporters entered in a prize drawing each month. So an extra incentive, but we will be selling these on our website. Link to our coaching website below. We sell plans for any service, any distance. Big thanks to Coach Sandy for all this experience and for all the athletes that we've learned from through this process and what really shapes our training plans as well as our whole philosophy in the videos on here. So be sure to check out the hat pre-orders. It's going to take a couple months to make them all and ship them out, but you could put in your form. You could check it out on the website. Link to it below. Thank you guys. Can't thank you enough for all the support. Thumbs up, sharing these videos, subscribing on here. Really means a lot to me. Hope your training's going well, and stay tuned for more Sage Running videos. Ooh, finishing up 30K, 18.6 miles about. Pretty cold out. Should have worn a third sock.